Now, today I'm going to talk about the 666 mark of the beast system. More specifically, how quickly the world is moving towards this totalitarian 666 beast system. Most believers, as well as unbelievers, know something about the 666 mark of the Antichrist. This frightening dystopian system is not a fictitious sci-fi idea that has caught the imagination of the people. It does not originate from Hollywood. Rather, the idea of the 666 beast system is taken straight from the Bible. You read it in Revelation chapter 13. Someday in the future, at the midpoint of the 7-year tribulation, the Antichrist is going to put up a global system of control whereby no one can buy or sell without this 666 mark. This mark bears his name. The Antichrist is a beast. The Bible calls him a beast, just like it calls the human kingdoms and empires in Daniel's vision beasts. Remember, I'm sure you remember Daniel's vision of the 4 beasts in Daniel chapter 7. Each of these beasts represents a powerful kingdom or a powerful empire. Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18. And it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell who does not have the mark. That is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let anyone with understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a person. Its number is 666. Now, Christians throughout the 2,000-year church history have been speculating what exactly is this 666 mark of the beast. We all have some inklings on our own. I have mine as well. But that's not what I want to get into today. Now, what I'm going to talk in my sermon today is this. The 666 beast system is a totalitarian surveillance and control system. It is a high-tech artificial intelligence infrastructure with a global reach. The Antichrist and his one-world government will use it to surveil and control nations and people. Its ultimate control will be in global finance, banking, and trade. In today's sermon, I want to point out that we are presently witnessing the emergence of the building blocks of this totalitarian surveillance and control system. These building blocks are already in the process of rolling out. Now, these building blocks could be developed because of the exponential increase in knowledge in various fields of science and technology. It is part and parcel of human progress. Now, the prophet Daniel prophesied that the time of the end will be characterized by a phenomenal increase in knowledge. Daniel 12:4. But you, Daniel, shut up the prophetic words, and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are presently living in the final hour. The globalist elites also contributed to the rapid development and implementation of these building blocks for surveillance and control. By globalist elites, I'm referring to very powerful people sitting at the top of global institutions, national governments, transnational corporations, and financial giants. They see the world as a global village, and they want everything in the world to be integrated. They want to see a globalized world. They are predominantly Westerners. Working through the United Nations and other global institutions, the globalist elites have come up with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or what we call SDGs, by the year 2030 To achieve most of these SDGs, they specifically call for the development and adoption of digital IDs, or what we call, or what is known as digital identity, and CBDCs, central bank digital currency. They call for the development and adoption of these two things. Now, these are 2 out of 4 building blocks for totalitarian surveillance and control that I'll be talking about in today's sermon. In other words, the United Nations collaborating with other global institutions such as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund and World Economic Forum are pushing for the rapid development and adoption of technological platforms that will ultimately be part of the suite of surveillance and control tools used by the Antichrist and the global government. Now, what's my point in saying all these things? First, to point out that we are at the time of the end, and we are very near to the rapture and afterward the tribulation. Having said that, we need to talk about what these building blocks of totalitarian surveillance and control are. Believers need to be informed. Believers need to be informed so that they know the urgency of the hour and the dangers associated with these control tools. Now, in this sense, my sermon today is not a typical sermon where I preach from a text in the Bible. Rather, I'm going to talk about four technological tools that will figure prominently in the coming 666 beast system. I'm going to talk about technology and finance. I'm going to talk about their eschatological implications. Now, basically, I'm connecting end-time biblical prophecies with the current development and trends and events in the world. Now, in case anyone listening to today's sermon finds it inexplicable that I should be talking about technology and finance, allow me to give you my rationales. I'll give you 2 rationales. First, biblical prophecies talk about finance. The prophecy in Revelation chapter 13 talk about how the Antichrist will exert control over all financial transactions and trade globally using the 666 beast system. Think a little bit deeper and you realize that there is no way the Antichrist and the one world government can surveil and control the world without modern technologies such as artificial intelligence. Revelation chapter 18 tells us about the final collapse of global trade and economy, marking the end of commercial Babylon. That's the end of the global trade and economic order as we know it today. So, if we don't know anything about what's happening in the world of finance and technology, how can we understand end-time prophecies? How do we know that we are already in the final hour? We can't have our heads buried in the sand like ostriches. With so many end-time prophecies in the Bible, now I want to say this to every one of us. It is God's will that we know the end time, the times and the signs of the time. The second rationale, we must be prepared for Christ's return. Jesus warns in the Olivet Discourse that we must be prepared. And as part of the preparation, Jesus warns us about deception. Please understand that Satan's deception at the time of the end will be extremely potent. It will combine subtlety with tactics unfamiliar to the church. For 2,000 years, Christians face mostly doctrinal deception. The fight is against false teachings coming from false prophets and false teachers. However, the deception at the time of the end will not be confined to doctrinal errors and religious matters. Instead, the devil will be using culture, finance, technology, science, medicine, media, social media, and every other tool that he can lay his hands on. Now, here is an example. Climate change. It is an issue that has deceived many people. And even for people that are aware of it, they find it very hard to articulate what really is this deception about climate change. In the 1970s, the then prevailing narrative is global cooling. An ice age is coming. Okay, if we do nothing about it, it's going to pose an existential threat to humanity. The whole world will be kaput. And barely 2 decades later, the globalist elites made a 180-degree turn. Global warming became the new existential threat to humanity. If the world didn't get their acts together by cutting back carbon emissions arising from human activities, which included animal farming and industrial activities, the earth will burn and humanity will be toast. Of course, the deceptive prediction didn't come true. Temperature stopped rising. Ladies and gentlemen, temperature has stopped rising. So now the narrative becomes climate change. No longer global warming, but just climate change. Who are the globalists trying to fool? Of course, climate is always changing. Do you know that climate is always changing? As long as the earth has existed, the climate is always changing. Determined mostly by solar activity. Astrophysicists and climate scientists will tell you the temperature on the earth is affected 90%, 95 above percent of the time by solar activities, by what is happening to the sun in our solar system. Now, in a nutshell, the climate change agenda is the globalist elite's attempt to control nations and people through controlling carbon emissions and carbon footprints. That is how much carbon dioxide can a nation or a person emit. They are going to control how much carbon dioxide can a nation and a person emit by issuing policies and regulations through global institutions like the United Nations, World Bank, IMF. Nations are compelled to align. Less wealthy nations that don't comply will not be able to secure loans and financial aids from the World Bank and IMF. Now, that is how the globalist elites are playing the game right now. And that is how the Antichrist and the global government will exert control over nations and people. Now, some Christians are sucked into the green agenda, especially the younger ones and especially the very educated ones. They are sucked into this whole green agenda without discerning the larger scheme of things. They push for creation care and other sustainability projects. Now, my dear friends, that is not the business of the church. It doesn't mean that we don't care about these things, but that's not the business of the church. Now, and the other thing is this, don't get me wrong. Of course, I want a clean environment. I want Singapore to have a clean environment. I want the world to have a clean, the environment of the entire world to be clean and things to be sustainable. But I'm against this ridiculous climate change agenda. Now, can you see how many people, including Christians, are deceived into supporting this climate scam? I mean, you may find what I'm saying here to be a little bit blunt, okay? And that's because the mainstream media is not saying things like how I've said it just now, okay? But if you do research, if you go into alternative media and all that, you understand why I say that this is a scam. Even President Donald Trump called it a scam. The Republican parties in the US call this thing a scam. It is a big scam. Okay, people know, China knows, India knows, okay, Russia knows, the big countries know. Okay, in fact, every other country know. But there is no choice. Okay, they have to flow along with it because of the power of the global institutions like the World Bank, IMF, okay, and all these big boys. So, as you can see, we have to learn some basic things about climate science, finance, various technologies, politics, geopolitics, culture, current affairs, and so on. Things with eschatological implications. I'm not merely asking you to get to know other subject matters, but things with eschatological implication, things that the devil is using to push the world to come under the control of the globalist elites. Otherwise, we'll be deceived and we will find ourselves inadvertently abetting Satan in his deceptive schemes. Now, this is a fairly long introduction to my sermon, but it is necessary for you to understand my rationale for preaching today's sermon, which may not sound like a typical sermon, okay? It is typical until now, okay? Going forward in the middle part, in the big middle part, it may not sound like a typical sermon, all right? So I've gotten you started. Now, the title of my sermon today is Moving. Okay, anything happen? Is there anything? The title of my sermon today is Moving Towards the Totalitarian 666 Beast System. Here are 4 technological building blocks of the 666 Beast System. Number 1, digital identity, digital ID. That's what we normally call it. Number 2, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Number 3, crypto and blockchain technologies. Number 4, Palantir. First, digital identity. Now, this is an important building block for the totalitarian 666 Beast system. There is no question about it. When I go through what I want to share with you, what I want to say to you, you will understand that this is a key core. This is a very important component of the totalitarian 666 Beast system. By saying that, now I'm not saying that the tool of digital identity or digital ID is evil. I'm not saying that it is evil. Some prophecy experts and prophecy watchers believe that it is evil, but that's not my position. For me, technology is neutral. Technology is amoral, and technology can be harnessed to be used for both good and evil. Good people will use technology for good, and bad or evil people will use technology for evil. So, what is a digital ID? Put it simply, a digital ID is a digitalized form of a person's identity. We should be familiar with it. Okay, we should be very familiar with it. Okay, our SingPass is a digital ID. Singapore is one of the first countries in the world to have digital IDs. And every one of us, I think every one of us have a digital ID. The digital ID is issued either by government or institutions. It contains information of a person. This information can include the person's biometric data, that is, his fingerprints, iris scans, and facial recognition. The person's government, it also contains, most of the time it contains the person's government-issued documents like passport and driver's license. It also contains our health records, financial information, and educational history. Hence, a digital ID is a useful tool for storing all our essential information. We don't need to keep and we don't need to carry all these documents around everywhere we go. It's going to be a big hassle, right? So, digital ID is a convenient digital tool. However, there are downsides to it which can be exploited by a rogue government. In our case here, the digital ID system will certainly be used by the global government. It will certainly be used by the Antichrist and abuse it for totalitarian control. Okay, let us look at some of the obvious risks, obvious dangers associated with the digital ID system. Rogue government can use a unified digital ID to build a comprehensive surveillance and control system that makes compliance mandatory for daily life. Let me say that again. Rogue governments can use a unified digital ID to build a comprehensive surveillance and control system that makes compliance mandatory for daily life. How can this be done? Several ways. I'll give you several examples. First, mass surveillance and behavioral monitoring. Mass surveillance and behavioral monitoring. Digital IDs can be linked to real-time tracking at the present moment when it is linked to your smartphones and wearables. Okay? It can also be linked to online browsing habits and purchases. Combined with facial recognition, digital IDs allow governments to monitor our physical and digital movement, okay? Our movement, our digital and physical movement, and all the citizens' movement, whether it's in the digital world or in the physical world. You can no longer have privacy. Everything you do, from your trip on a public transport to your purchases in stores, which are verified by your digital ID, can be logged, can be captured, creating a real-time, comprehensive map of your behavior, movement, and social networks. Okay, that's one. So, second thing, all right, how to make compliance mandatory for daily life. Number two, social credit systems. I'm sure we have heard of this thing, social credit system. But every time when they talk, finger is pointed at China. Okay, but I'm not bothered about what's going to happen in China because the Antichrist and the global government is not going to rise from China. It's going to rise from the West. It's going to rise from Europe, from the ashes of the ancient Roman Empire. So anyway, social credit system. Digital IDs make it easy to assign citizens a score based on behavior. For example, okay, the behavior such as your online speech, your social media posts, your purchases, your political views, your church attendance. You searching banned literature, you associating with dissidents, and you using too much energy. In certain cities in China, thousands of street cameras capture people's bad behavior in public faces through facial recognition, and it goes into their social scores. This is the social credit system. Now, this is totally dystopian. What is happening in China will most definitely be implemented in most places when the global government comes into existence, comes on the scene. Now, if you have a low score, if you have a low social credit score, you will be punished. You have restricted access to services, jobs, travel, and education. The social credit system serves to enhance self-censorship and conformity to the acceptable standards of the state. Okay, sounds a little bit, if you know history, sounds a little bit like, or very much like like communist China back in the time of Mao Zedong and Stalin's Soviet Union, okay? But now, they did it manually. Now, it is done digitally. Okay, so how to make compliance mandatory for daily life? Third, conditional access and denial of services. Conditional access and denial of services. The digital ID will soon become the single point of control for accessing fundamental rights and services, making disobedience to governments economically painful and practically impossible. A non-compliant person's ID status can be restricted, instantly preventing him from essential services. For example, restricted from accessing his bank account or making certain purchases, restricted from applying for a job or renewing his professional license or even his driver's license, restricted from booking travel and hotel accommodation, restricted from receiving medical treatment. How to make compliance mandatory for daily life? Fourth, global technocratic governance. Global technocratic governance. Global institutions and their alliances can leverage these national ID systems to enforce global compliance standards or exert their influence beyond sovereign borders. As digital IDs are designed to be interoperable across borders for travel, for commerce, and for global governance, a global standard for ID compliance will eventually emerge. There's a problem of global blacklisting. If a global institution or a powerful alliance of nations dictates a certain global compliance rule, an individual who has been deplatformed or restricted in one country could see their ID status immediately revoked or flagged when they enter into other countries. By doing so, global institutions could enforce their norms and policies by requiring all nations to integrate these standards into their ID verification gateways. What policies and norms am I talking about? For example, things with eschatological implication. For example, policies related to the climate agenda, policies related to environmental mandates, public health compliance, speech code, what can be said, what cannot be said. So these are just a few examples. How to make compliance mandatory for daily life? Fifth, linking digital IDs to central bank digital currencies. I will elaborate on this point when I talk about the next technological tool, CBDC, for the Totalitarian 666B system. Suffice to say here is digital IDs will be linked to CBDCs. And CBDCs are programmable money. CBDCs are programmable monies. Therefore, government can easily impose sanctions, financial sanctions on non-compliant individuals. They can restrict purchases with a touch of the button. Now, actually, they don't need any button at all because it's all programmed into the algorithm. Everything will be done automatically. When I come to my last point, you understand how that can be done. In summary, the transition to a universal digital ID creates a single switch that, if controlled by an authoritarian power, turns the convenience of digitalization into a tool of enslavement, where access to life's necessities is conditioned on one's political and behavioral obedience. This is a frightening scenario which describes the totalitarian 666B system. Digital IDs are essential for this dystopian surveillance and control infrastructure. So 4 technological building blocks for the 666B system. First, digital IDs. Second, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Several years ago, During and after the COVID crisis, there were a lot of talk about CBDCs. Speculation was rife that many developed countries will be launching their own CBDCs soon. After that, the world will gradually move towards a one world currency. However, in the last 2 years, speculations have largely vanished. But countries have not stopped working on the digital form of their own fiat currencies. China is the first country in the world to test their digital yuan. It has been widely reported that the European Union will be launching their digital euro in October 2025, which is this month. Okay, if they don't make it by this deadline because of legislative problem, all right, it will happen shortly, okay, by the end of the year or early next year. But we see, maybe they're going to announce sometime this month. The United States, under President Donald Trump, is against the idea of a US CBDC because of concerns over privacy infringements, surveillance, and control. Now, having said all this, there are many good reasons for countries to have their own central bank digital currency. Many good reasons. Okay, I know some of you are very clued into all this. All you can think about is all the negative things. But there are some very good reasons why countries should have their own central bank digital currencies. Speed and efficiency. CBDCs enable instant, low-cost payments, both domestically and cross-border. Traditional banking and SWIFT transfers will take days, whereas CBDC settles nearly instantly. Financial inclusion. Billions of people globally do not have bank accounts, but a state-issued digital wallet could let anyone with a smartphone participate in the economy, especially in developing countries. The next reason, reduce fraud and money laundering. Digital currencies can be tracked. Okay, digital currencies can be tracked, making money laundering, illicit trade, tax evasion, corruption harder. Smart contracts, a feature of CBDC, can ensure transparency and compliance with financial rules. Okay, without people having to check. Everything is programmed into the algorithm. The next reason, monetary policy intervention. Central banks could directly distribute stimulus or adjust liquidity by programming CBDCs, enabling precise, rapid responses to economic crises. For example, instant stimulus payment during the COVID crisis. Okay, at the present moment, without this CBDC feature, government can make an announcement and it will take weeks and months before implementation is fast. But with CBDC, they can do it very quickly. They can stimulate the economy by programming the CBDCs very, very quickly, and it will become more efficient, more effective. The last reason, resilience and stability. CBDCs are backed by central banks, and therefore it is safer than putting your deposits in the banks. A private bank can collapse, okay? But central bank hardly collapse. Not that they cannot collapse, but compared to commercial bank, they hardly collapse. So these are some of the pros for central bank digital currencies. However, central bank digital currencies also pose significant downside risks or dangers for citizens or individuals. What are the dangers? Financial surveillance and loss of privacy. Financial surveillance and loss of privacy. Unlike cash, CBDC makes every transaction traceable through the linkage with digital IDs. Government could see what, where, when, and how you spend your money, removing financial anonymity entirely, completely. This level of surveillance encroaches on privacy. Every transaction is recorded on a centralized ledger. It gives government unprecedented insights into your private life, far beyond your tax data and bank records. It is a frightening thought. Think about it. The twin power of digital ID and CBDC. It is a frightening thought. Now, this is how the Antichrist and his one world government will surveil all financial transactions and economic activities. The next danger of CBDC, coercion and policy enforcement. Coercion and policy enforcement. CBDCs are programmable, meaning authorities could control over how, when, and where citizens can use their money. Government could enforce laws and policies through direct financial restriction. They control laws, they control policies, through direct financial restrictions. For example, blocking buying and selling for Christians. The time will come. If you are a Christian, they may even block your account. Definitely during the midpoint of tribulation, this is what is going to happen. Those without the mark of the beast will not be able to buy and sell. Closing bank accounts for both protesting against government. Freezing assets for political speech deemed misinformation. We see this thing happening during the COVID season. Anything that doesn't jive with the mainstream narrative, they brand it as misinformation. With digital ID and CBDC, they can just turn off your account very, very quickly. Withholding welfare from those refusing digital ID compliance. Suspending digital wallets for those who breach the boundary of 15-minute cities. Now, some of you may not know what a 15-minute city is, but it will become a common feature in time to come, especially in the Western world. They are going to silo people in regions, in cities, in town. The experiment has gone on for quite a while. Oxford is one of the towns, one of the places where things like that happen. So if you leave that boundary of the 15-minute city, your ability to buy and sell can be automatically turned off. Penalizing high carbon purchases for the sake of climate goals. You will be restricted from buying air tickets and further purchases of red meats like beef, ducks, because you have exceeded your monthly carbon quota. This is part of the sustainability thing, part of the climate agenda. Finally, they are going to lock you in, they're going to lock you out. You'll be blocked from certain financial activities if you're not vaccinated. This will be done in time to come. All these represent soft totalitarianism. That means coercion without violence. Coercion without violence. Oh, you don't do it? Fine, you don't do it. You don't have the benefit. They're not going to beat you up. They're not going to put you in a prison. You just miss all the benefits. You cannot function in society. That is what it means by soft totalitarianism. Coercion without violence. You'll be forced to self-censor yourself. You'll be forced to comply with the rules, the regulation, the policies, the law of the state, no matter how woke all these policies are, no matter how heavy-handed these laws are. If you don't comply, you are in trouble. We witness parallels of such kind of dystopian actions in the West in recent years. In the West, where they always talk about democratic values, free speech, human rights, and so on. But we see these things happening in the last 5 years in the West. In Canada, people were debanked for participating and supporting the truckers' protests against COVID-19 vaccine mandate. They don't have the system to help them. They just inform the bank, the government tell the bank, debank these people. turn off their bank account so that they cannot use their bank account. But when digital ID and CBDCs are in place, they can easily do that with the flip of a switch. It'll be programmed into the algorithm. The CBDC technology will be one of the building blocks of the 666 system. It is indispensable for totalitarian surveillance and control. So 4 technological building blocks of the totalitarian 666 system. First, digital identity, digital IDs. Second, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Third, crypto and blockchain technologies. Crypto and blockchain technologies. Now, a lot of things that I'm going to say here is very original. You don't read of it in articles, you don't read of it in books. These are original materials, all right? Crypto technology is the technology that powers CBDC and digital currencies. Together with the blockchain technology, they'll be the backbone of the new financial, banking, and trade infrastructure. A great reset in the world of finance, banking, and trade is taking place quietly, but most certainly. The way payments are made, both within borders and cross borders, and the way banking settlement, liquidity management, and transactions of all kinds of assets is done, is changing. And you're going to see such a rapid change in the next 1 to 2 years that either you're not going to catch up or you'll be frightened out of your wits. Okay, led by the US, countries all over the world are changing their laws, policies, and regulations to accommodate the seismic shift in the world of finance brought about by crypto technology. Central banks, financial institutions, asset managers, big tech, and multinational corporations are scrambling to get up to speed with the crypto revolution. Now, why am I saying all this? Because all kinds of assets, whether it is money, stock, treasury products like treasury bill, treasury notes, treasury bonds, carbon credits, commodity, real estates, gold, silver, all these things will be tokenized. In other words, all these things will be digitalized and then put on the blockchain ledger. Okay, they are moving everything in the physical world, all right, into the digital world, parking it in the blockchain ledger. It bypasses, okay, not just for record purposes. Like digital ID, we know that it's for record purposes, but not just for record purposes, like digital ID, but these asset values can be transacted and moved across the crypto rails or the digital rails instantly, efficiently, and cheaply. It bypasses third parties by making use of smart contracts, reducing costs and hassle. Crypto is a great technology. Okay, some of you, after listening to this, no, it's evil. No. Crypto is a great technology. It is a great way to do business. It is a great way to do finance, banking, and trade. Everything is done and captured in one place, in the blockchain ledgers. And I'm sure you are smart people, you know what I'm getting at. Okay, I'm sure you know what I'm getting at. Like digital IDs, crypto systems can be abused by big powers. Though it is decentralized and privacy can be built in, global institutions and alliance of big powers can conspire to control this new infrastructure. How? By law. By the stroke of a pen. An executive order, by legislation, they can put things into law and therefore they can control the system. You can bet your last dollar that the emerging global government will use it for evil under the guise of maintaining global financial stability and for public good. You know, when you do all these evil things, they will not tell you that, hey, guys, I'm doing it to control you. I'm doing it to survey you. I'm doing evil things to you. They don't. They always got to disguise it as, oh, it's for this good purpose, for that good purpose. They will always come up with good reasons to justify their surveillance and control. Now consider this. For the longest time, prophecy experts predict that there will be a one world currency. Now, those of you who are interested in prophecy over the decades, they tell you that a lot of these experts tell you that there's going to be a one world currency. The Antichrist will use this one world currency in conjunction with his 666 beast system to control buying and selling globally. Okay, heard of that before? Okay, I'm sure many of you have. But there is one big hurdle. Governments will resist giving up control of their own national currencies for good reasons. They want to retain control. Okay, like what I always say, Antichrist will not have total geopolitical control over the entire world. Okay, primarily he controls the world through global finance, through global banking, and through global trade. So we got a problem because national governments will not want to give up control of their own fiat currencies. Now, those who understand crypto technology will tell you that there is no need for a one world currency. I'm going to give you a different proposition. There is no need for a one world currency. There is one crypto technology that can enable seamless bridging of all CBDCs and digital currencies. This company is already working with the Bank of International Settlement. That is a central bank of central banks. It's also working with the IMF, European Union, many central banks, and many banks around the world, including one big bank in Singapore, DBS. It has been in the news internationally, not really in Singapore, but internationally over the last 2 weeks. With this particular crypto technology, the Antichrist and his global government can easily control finance, banking, and trade in the same way afforded by a one world currency. They don't need a one world currency anymore. They just need this bridging asset. They just need the system to be up, and they can effect the same kind of control. Like how having a one world currency enables them to control the world of finance, banking, and trade. One more important point. This particular crypto technology has also developed, and these are two very technical terms, all right? Digital identity anchoring and biological key infrastructure. Now, this is what these terms mean. Digital identity anchoring. Identity can be bound cryptographically to biometric and genomic vectors. Okay, I think it's over the head of most of us, including myself, but you see the word biometric and genomic vectors. You know you got to do something with DNA. The second one, biological key infrastructure. Genomic-based encryption keys. Genome-anchored wallets. Bio-link remittances. Now, in layman terms, it means this. Financial transactions, all forms of buying and selling on the digital rails can be linked to the human DNA. Can be linked to the human DNA. It sounds crazy. It reads like a DARPA file, isn't it? I mean that US A-star equivalent of what we have in Singapore. But this is a fact. This particular crypto technology can link buying and selling to your genome, that is, to your DNA. Okay, the basic technology is already there. Does that sound like the 666 mark of the beast? It certainly sounds like it. I don't know how it works, but I know that anyone with the mark of the beast on his forehead or on the right hand cannot be safe. You may profess Christ. You may confess Christ. You may confess all your sins. You say, Jesus, I receive you. But the moment a person has a mark of the beast on his forehead or on the right hand, he cannot be saved. Now, this is very strange, considering that even the vilest offender, like a mass murderer, can be saved if he repents. But the moment a person with a 666 mark of the beast on his body, he cannot be saved. He cannot be saved. That's what is said in Revelation chapter 14. The only biblical explanation that makes sense is his genome has been altered when he received the mark. That means it's not going to be like a printer mark. It's going to be something injected inside there, okay? And that will alter a person's DNA. In other words, his DNA sequence have been altered such that he's no longer a human being. Now, why am I saying that? Now, I'm going to apply the Genesis 6 theology. Nephilim, the crossbreed between angel and human woman, could not be saved. They were doomed for destruction. God sent a global flood to wipe out the Nephilim. Okay, it's because of man's wickedness that God sends the flood, but at the same time, it is primarily because God wants to wipe out the Nephilim. Read Genesis chapter 6 plainly, and you get the picture, you get the idea. So when a person's genome, that means the DNA sequence in his body, is altered to the extent that he's no longer a human being, he cannot be saved. How much of the DNA must be altered before a person is no longer human? I don't know. I'm not into bioscience and all that. I don't know. Okay, so all this DNA manipulation and all that can potentially be dangerous. It is a salvific issue. It concerns salvation. So, crypto and blockchain technologies are not just the building blocks for CBDCs and digital currencies. They will also be the enablers of the Antichrist and the one world government's 666 beast system. 4 technological building blocks of the totalitarian 666 beast system. First, digital identity. Second, central bank digital currencies. Third, crypto and blockchain technologies. Fourth, Palantir. Palantir? What is Palantir? In Tolkien's, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, Palantir is a magical stone that allows for seeing everywhere and anywhere. It also allows for long-distance communication, and it also allows for scrying, that means predicting the future. But I'm not talking about this fictional Palantir. I'm talking about a modern company known as Palantir Technologies Inc., which is headquartered in Denver, Colorado, USA, and listed in NASDAQ Stock Exchange. Go to their website and you'll see the slogan, AI-powered automation for every decision. AI-powered automation for every decision. Palantir is a software company that specializes in building platforms for integrating, managing, and analyzing vast complex data sets to provide actionable intelligence for critical decision making. Its capabilities are delivered through 3 distinct yet integrated platforms. Number 1, Palantir Gotham. Okay, Batman Gotham City. Palantir Gotham. It is designed for government entities like defense intelligence and law enforcement. It enables real-time data sharing, advanced analytics for threat detection and mission planning. Okay, if it's over your head, it's okay. Just understand the brief concept of it. And then the second thing is Palantir, the second platform, Palantir Foundry. It is tailored for commercial and civil sectors such as finance, healthcare, manufacturing. And the third platform is Palantir Artificial Intelligence Platform, AIP. Palantir Artificial Intelligence Platform. Very briefly, Palantir's main capability is transforming mass amount of raw disparate data into secure, compliance, AI-powered insights for both national security missions and complex organizational operation. So it sounds very cheap, but at the same time, it sounds very, very powerful, all right? Just understanding the basic of this is very, very powerful. Like digital IDs, CBDCs, digital currencies, crypto technology, blockchain technology, Palantir has very good use cases for national security and commercial purposes. However, it has its downside risk and danger in the wrong hands. Always is the case. Technology is great, technology is neutral, but in the wrong hands, it can be very dangerous. Let me just give you two dystopian scenarios based on the combined use of these three Palantir platforms: Gotham, Foundry, and AIP. Okay? First, real-time social score and predictive suppression. Real-time social score and predictive suppression. The totalitarian state can deploy Palantir's Foundry platform across all civilian infrastructure: banking, healthcare, transportation, social media, data feeds. They can deploy over everything that is existing out in the world today. Palantir's AIP then uses this unified data model to establish a comprehensive citizen compliance score, a social credit system. They can then use this to establish a comprehensive citizen compliance score which operates in real time. The system will flag people for crimes committed. Not only that, it also flags individuals who exhibit high-risk behavior based on predictive modeling. That means a crime hasn't been committed yet, but they can predict that you're going to commit a crime. Think about that. Okay, in the hands of evil people, they can frame you very, very easily. Okay, give you a few examples. The system might identify a person for doing the following things: search banned literature in a week, search banned literature online, based on the AIP analysis of web history. That means what you have been doing in your social media, online, all these years. Okay, these things are collected by Telegram, by Facebook, and all that. The Palantir AIP system is connected to all these big boys. Okay, they can scour the data and they can form an image of what kind of person you are and predict the kind of behavior that you will exhibit under certain situations. Make 10 cash withdrawals in a week. Say they didn't allow you to do it and you want to do it, all right? And this is based on the Foundry analysis of your banking data. Normally, every week, you just make one withdrawal. But why suddenly, in the last 3 weeks, you're making 10, 15 withdrawals? Something is happening. Attended a private gathering where key non-compliance individuals were present, based on Gotham's analysis of location and social graph. It's very AI, it's very advanced, it's very, very powerful. You get a sense of it. And this is what's going to happen next. When the citizen compliance score drops below a certain threshold, the system will trigger an automatic response. They don't need to employ a lot of manpower, right? Sit there, you cross the line, press the button, don't need, okay? It will trigger an automated response. Their digital IDs will be restricted, preventing them from accessing their bank account and doing certain activities. Like you want to travel, you want to book a ticket, you can't. All right, you want to book a hotel, cannot. These things can happen automatically. The system can also issue restrictions on their personal communication. Well, today you got WhatsApp, Telegram, email. You think you can communicate very freely and so on. But with the Palantir system, you breach the standards of the road state, they can just cut off your communication automatically. The system may also schedule a randomized inspection of these people's houses. That means suddenly you find police at your doorstep saying, okay, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Okay, how do I know? How do you know? Okay, we know because Palantir tell us and signal to us that we got to come and pay you a visit to make sure that you're not up to anything funny. So that's one dystopian scenario. Let me give you another dystopian scenario. Dynamic redlining and economic coercion. Dynamic redlining and economic coercion. The totalitarian regime can use Palantir to enforce economic and social control over specific groups of people or over an area, okay, or regions. I'll give you two examples. Here's the first example. Data-driven punishment. Data-driven punishment. The Palantir system identifies a city block or a group of people. Example, lawyers, discerning Christians, union leaders, journalists whose collective dissident score is rising. Okay, that means they've been tracking you, and they realize that you guys have been gathering together very, very often. What are you discussing? What are you talking and all that? And they've been picking up your trails and so on. All right. The Foundry platform integrated with the banks, the financial sector, immediately redlines, targets the group. Your home loan interest rate for the entire group, all right, the home loan interest rate for the entire group will spike. It will go up from 2% to 5%. Okay, that means you're going to pay more for your home mortgages and so on. Healthcare providers will be flagged to delay appointment, intentionally delay your appointment, so that you want to go and see. Maybe not for Singapore. Our healthcare system is one of the most efficient in the world. Like in the UK NHS system, okay, what happened is that, look, you go and queue up, all right? You go and queue up. Already, sometimes you queue in the morning. When they close at 3 o'clock, it doesn't reach you, okay? And what happened if they keep delaying you until you got no choice but die? This is what can happen. Here's a second example, career sanctions. Career sanction. The Palantir Foundry system automatically screen all job applicants based on their citizen compliance score. It runs scenarios to predict the future risks these applicants might pose to the totalitarian regime. Okay, it's not job specific, it's not company specific, but everyone who wants to apply a job, okay, their data are already collected by Palantirs and all that, and the companies are responsible to make sure that they run the checks. A non-compliant person's application may not be rejected with a clear reason, but is simply delayed, buried in a digital queue, or given low priority flag that makes him practically unemployable. Can do all sort of things on you. So, you can see how a totalitarian state can use Palantir to digitally surveil and control citizens. Palantir or similar systems will surely be part of the Antichrist and the global government suite of tools. It will be one of the building blocks of the totalitarian 666 beast system. Now, in conclusion, I'd like to say two things. First, technology is neutral. Technology is amoral. Always bear that in mind. Knowledge will increase and technology will advance as humanity progresses. By themselves, digital IDs, CBDCs, digital currencies, crypto technology, blockchain technology, even Palantir or systems like it, they are neither good nor evil. These tools and technologies can be used for good. Nations and peoples can benefit from their proper deployment. But of course, they can also be used for evil, for wicked purposes. Knowing how corrupt humanity is, we can expect these powerful technologies will be used by the global elites to control nations and peoples. They will use it for surveillance and control purposes. They will use it to enslave the entire world. And that's what end-time prophecies inform us. And so if we go around talking like that, I believe that a big segment of Christians will say that, please don't spout conspiracy theories. Now, these are not conspiracy theories. These are what end-time prophecies inform us. Understand what the 666B system is all about. It is a surveillance and control system, ironclad, to control the entire world. The final world empire will be a technocratic, totalitarian regime. The Antichrist and the global government will use all these tools, all these platforms to surveil and control nations and people. The second thing I want to say in conclusion is this. These digital tools and technologies to build the totalitarian 666B system are already available. They are not available 5 years ago, 7 years ago, but they are available today. And they will become more and more powerful when the engineers continue to work on it. Their adoption and full implementation will take time. Okay, you want to implement things, definitely it will take time. But it will take time also because there have been pushback from people. Not people in the Asian society, but people in the West. People in the West are rising up. They are actually rising up, okay? Look at the news. They are rising up to resist the globalist elite's effort to break down the present order and implement these technologies, among other things. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has recently announced that his government will introduce digital IDs for all British citizens and residents. The pushback is strong. After 2 weeks, there are almost 2.8 signatures in a petition against the introduction of digital IDs. Okay, and the people are discerning enough. You know, the reason that Keir Starmer gave is a cop-out reason. It's a cop-out reason. So people know that there are more sinister objective inside in his government. In the United States, President Trump and the Republican states are vehemently against the idea of having a United States CBDC. But I can tell you that despite pushback, huge pushback right now, but despite all this pushback, the globalists will prevail. The globalists will prevail. It is a matter of time. I say that because the one world government will rise in Europe from the ashes of the ancient Roman Empire, according to biblical prophecies. I say that because the 666B system will be a reality someday, according to biblical prophecies. The digital tools and platforms for building the 666B system are already available. So the time is near. Jesus is coming back soon. Brace yourself. Be alert. Be vigilant. Be prepared for his return to rapture the church. Our redemption draws near. Amen? Amen. Come, let us all stand.